Island time at Gate B7. The universal sigh of 100 delayed passengers filled the cavernous terminal of JFK. Kofi Mayers leaned back in the rigid plastic chair, the announcement echoing in his ears. Flight 468 to Bridgetown, Barbados, is delayed due to incoming aircraft maintenance. Revised departure time, 9:45 p.m. He checked his watch. Another 2 hours. Rubbing a hand over his close-cropped hair, he let out a quiet breath. His grandmother's voice, warm and chiding, played in his head. "Kofi, man, why you shoulder so tight so? You ain't reached yet, you know. Ease up. Barbados don't move so fast. You need to get on island time." He tried to roll the stones away. He was escaping a New York winter for sun-drenched Barbados, a 2-week respite from the grueling architecture firm where he spent his days designing sleek, glass boxes that felt nothing like a home. A flicker of movement a few seats down caught his eye. A woman was attempting to lift a bulging carry-on. She was tall with the kind of graceful limbs that made the struggle seem almost choreographed. Her natural hair was gathered into a high puff on her head, a few defiant coils springing free to frame a face etched in frustration. She wore a simple butter-yellow sundress under her open coat, a bold choice for a New York February, but a promise of the destination. Kofi was on his feet without thinking. "Need a hand?" She turned, and her eyes, a deep, rich brown that held flecks of gold, met his. A slight frown of annoyance softened into a grateful smile. "This bag has a mind of its own. It thinks it's still in my closet, and I'm trying to force one more pair of sandals in." His laugh was easy, surprising him. "A common affliction. Here, allow me." His hand brushed against hers as he took the weight of the bag. Her skin was warm. He shifted it onto a nearby bench, holding it steady while she caught her breath. "Thank you," she said, smoothing down her dress. "I'm Nia, headed to Barbados." "Kofi." "And I am. Seems we're all in this delayed boat together." He gestured to the sea of weary travelers. "Tell me about it." "I was mentally already on the beach with the coconut water." "Coconut water?" Ambitious. "I was settling for a questionable airport coffee." "Life's too short for questionable coffee," Nia declared, pulling a sleek thermos from her tote bag. "I come prepared. Herbal tea, ginger and turmeric. My auntie insists it wards off plain germs." She unscrewed the cap, and a spicy, comforting scent wafted between them. "I suppose it's too soon to offer a stranger a sip from my thermos." Kofi smiled. "Probably, but the offer is appreciated, and Auntie's wisdom is not to be ignored." And just like that, the dam broke. They talked, first about the absurdity of air travel, then about the quiet dread of the middle seat, which blossomed into stories of their lives. Nia was a cultural historian, returning from a lecture series in Boston, heading home to Barbados for a family wedding. "Home?" Kofi asked. "Born and raised in Brooklyn, but my parents are from Barbados. We spent every summer there. They moved back permanently 5 years ago. It's my anchor point." He told her about his work, about the constant pressure, and the trip that was a gift to himself after a year of relentless projects. "I need to remember what the sun feels like," he confessed, "and my paternal grandmother threatened to disown me if I didn't visit." "You don't stand a chance," Nia laughed, a sound like wind chimes. "Grandmothers like that will have you well fed and full of advice in no time." Their conversation flowed like a steady, warm current. They spoke of the specific joy of finding a good West African restaurant in New York, the shared memory of the scent of coconut oil and shea butter in a grandmother's house, and the unspoken understanding of code switching through a day. It was a connection built on a common cultural language, one that needed no translation. When the coffee shop across from the gate finally beckoned, Kofi stood. "That questionable coffee is calling my name, Can I bring you back something? Something that isn't from my stranger thermos? Nia's eyes crinkled at the corners. A chamomile tea would be lovely, no caffeine. I'm hoping to sleep on the flight. He returned with the drinks, and their fingers touched again during the handoff. This time, neither of them pulled away immediately. A current, subtle and electric, passed between them. The delay stretched on. They abandoned their seats for a slow walk through the terminal, past glowing newsstands and shuttered stores. Their shoulders occasionally brushed, a casual contact that felt anything but. He learned she hated the sound of people chewing, but loved the sound of a rain on a tin roof. She learned he was a terrible singer, but knew all the words to every classic reggae and highlife song. Under the sterile airport lights, Kofi found himself captivated by the details of her. The way she gestured with her long fingers when she talked about archival research, the subtle scent of mango and shea that drifted from her skin, the intelligent light in her eyes when she debated the best beach on the island's west coast. It's definitely Folkestone, he insisted playfully. Absolutely not. Too many tourists. Payne's Bay is where the locals go, she countered, poking his arm. The PA system crackled again, but this time it was the call for boarding. The collective relief was palpable. As they joined the line, a sudden nervous energy replaced the easy camaraderie. This bubble was about to pop. They would be separated on the plane, assigned to different rows, and this magical, suspended moment would end upon landing. They reached their row miraculously, and they were seated together, a window and a middle. An elderly man was already settled in the aisle seat. After you, Kofi said, gesturing for Nia to take the window. The 5-hour flight passed in a blur of whispered conversation, shared earbuds listening to a curated playlist of hers, a mix of soul, lovers rock, and soca, and the intimate silence of two people dozing, her head eventually finding its way to his shoulder. He stayed perfectly still, savoring the weight and the trust of it, the soft texture of her hair against his cheek. It was sensual in the purest sense, a feast of feeling, of warmth, of a connection that resonated deeper than words. When the pilot announced their descent, the cabin lights flickered on. Nia stirred, lifting her head. She blinked, looking slightly embarrassed. I'm so sorry, I used you as a pillow. It was the most comfortable I've been all flight, Kofi said, his voice low. He meant it. The wheels touched down with a jolt and a cheer from the passengers. They had arrived. The spell of the airplane was broken, replaced by the frantic energy of retrieval and arrival. They disembarked and collected their luggage from the carousel in a silence fraught with unspoken questions. The sliding doors opened, and the Barbados night air washed over them thick, warm, and fragrant with plumeria and salt. It was a physical embrace after the dry, recycled airplane air. Kofi inhaled deeply, finally feeling his shoulders truly relax. They stood awkwardly on the curb, the flow of passengers parting around them. So, Nia said, shifting her weight, my cousin is supposed to be picking me up. She pointed to a line of cars. Right. My grandma said she's sending a driver, Kofi replied, though he couldn't bring himself to look for the sign with his name on it. This was it. The end of the journey, the start of reality. He couldn't let it end. Not like this. Nia, he said, his voice more earnest than he intended. This might be forward, but can I see you again while I'm here? The gold flecks in her eyes seemed to catch the tropical moonlight. She bit her lip, a small smile playing on her face. Kofi, I've just spent the last 10 hours with you. I think we're past forward. She reached into her tote bag, pulled out a pen, and took his hand. Without breaking eye contact, she wrote a number on his palm. Her touch was deliberate, tracing the digits onto his skin, a sensation that shot straight to his core. "That's my number," she said softly. "Call me. Tomorrow. Don't make me wait." "I will," he promised, closing his fingers around the digits as if holding a precious secret. First thing, a car honked. A young man was waving frantically from a beat-up sedan. "Nia, over here." "That's my cue," she said. She hesitated for a second, then leaned in. She didn't kiss him. Instead, she pressed her cheek against his, a soft, warm touch that was infinitely more intimate. He felt the smile against his skin. "Welcome to Barbados, Kofi." And then she was gone, sliding into the passenger seat, waving through the window as the car pulled away into the balmy night. Kofi stood rooted to the spot, the thick, warm night air settling into his lungs. A man holding a sign that read "Mayors" eventually found him. As the driver loaded his bags into the car, Kofi finally looked down at his palm. Her number was there, in neat, looping script. He smiled, the stones on his shoulders gone, replaced by the exhilarating lightness of anticipation. He wasn't just in Barbados. He was on island time, and it had already gifted him a possibility more beautiful than any sunset. His vacation, and perhaps something far more, had just begun. The driver, an older man with a kind face and a well-worn cap, chatted easily about the warm night air and which mornings were best for the fish market as they wound their way away from the airport. But Kofi heard it all as a distant melody. His entire being was focused on the faint, inky numbers on his palm, a tangible echo of her presence. The warm night air streaming through the open window felt like her breath. The star-dusted sky, a promise. His grandmother's house was a revelation. Not a sleek glass box, but a cheerful coral-pink bungalow nestled in a garden bursting with hibiscus and bougainvillea. The air was thick with the scent of night-blooming jasmine. His grandmother, Mama Amma, was a small, formidable woman with eyes that missed nothing. She hugged him fiercely, her grip belying her age, and immediately ushered him to the table where a plate of stewed chicken, rice and peas, and fried plantain waited. "You look tired, but you have a light in your eyes, Kofi," she observed, sitting opposite him with a cup of bush tea. "The flight was good. It was unexpected," he said, a slow smile spreading across his face as he finally allowed himself to fully remember the feel of Nia's head on his shoulder. Mama Amma simply nodded, a knowing glint in her eye. The island works in mysterious ways. Eat, then sleep. He did sleep, deeply and dreamlessly, and woke with the dawn to the sound of crowing roosters and the distant crash of waves. The first thing he did, even before his coffee, was to carefully transfer the number from his palm to his phone's contacts. He stared at it for a long moment. Nia, before sending a text, simple and direct. "Good morning. It's Kofi from Gate B7. I'm keeping my promise." The response was almost immediate, as if she'd been waiting. "Good morning. I was hoping you would. How's your first morning on island time?" They texted throughout the day as he settled in, a constant thrilling undercurrent to his reunion with family. He told her about Mama Amma's relentless feeding schedule. She told him about the chaos of pre-wedding preparations. The digital connection was a bridge, but it only made the desire to see her in the vivid Caribbean light more acute. Finally, on his second evening, he asked, "Can I see you? For real?" Not in an airport or a text message. Her reply was a pin on a map and a time. "Tomorrow, Paynes Bay, 4 p.m. I'll prove my point about the beaches." The next day passed in a sweet, agonizing slow motion. At 3:45 p.m., he stood on the edge of Paynes Bay, the white sand warm beneath his feet, the turquoise water so clear it looked unreal. The beach was, as she'd promised, blissfully uncrowded, dotted only with a few locals and savvy tourists. He saw her walking towards him from the far end of the beach, and his breath caught. She wore a simple, flowing caftan over a swimsuit, her hair now free and falling in a magnificent cloud of curls around her shoulders. She was even more beautiful here, in her element, under the golden sun. "See," she said as she reached him, gesturing to the serene bay. "No crowds, just the sand, the sea, and the occasional curious fish." "You were right," he conceded, his eyes not leaving her face. "It's perfect." They spent the next hour in the water, floating in the gentle waves, talking effortlessly as they had in the airport. But here, there was no impending departure. Here, there was only one possibility. The water lapped at their skin, a sensual caress that felt charged with intention. When their legs brushed under the surface, neither moved away. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky in strokes of orange and violet, they walked along the water's edge. "The wedding is this Saturday," Nia said, kicking at the foam. "It's my cousin's. It's going to be huge. And I don't really have a +1. Kofi stopped walking and turned to face her. The setting sun set her skin aglow. "Are you asking me to be your wedding date, Nia?" She looked up at him, a playful yet nervous smile on her lips. "I am. It involves a lot of food, a lot of dancing, and a very large, very nosy Bajan family who will have questions. It's a big ask for a man you just met." He took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. The connection was instant and profound. A perfect fit. "I think," he said softly, "after a 5-hour flight and a sunset swim, we're past just met. I'd be honored." The wedding was everything she promised and more. It was a vibrant, joyful explosion of music, color, and love. Kofi, in a light linen suit, felt seamlessly woven into the fabric of the day. He danced with Nia's aunties, debated the best way to prepare flying fish with her uncles, and was thoroughly vetted by her cousins. But through it all, his anchor was Nia. They danced together under strings of fairy lights, her body moving in sync with his to the pulsing rhythms of soca and calypso. It wasn't the crowded airport or the vast ocean, but on that dance floor, surrounded by the sounds of celebration, that the space between them finally dissolved. His hand rested on the small of her back, drawing her closer. Her head tilted up, her eyes searching his, and the world narrowed to just the two of them. The music slowed to a smooth reggae tune. He didn't let go. He simply pulled her closer until they were swaying together, her cheek resting against his chest. He could feel the beat of her heart through his shirt, or maybe it was his own. He couldn't tell. They were one rhythm. "Thank you for coming with me," she whispered into the fabric of his suit. "There's nowhere else I'd rather be," he murmured into her hair, breathing in the now familiar scent of her. The reception wound down, but their night didn't end. They found themselves on the quiet terrace of her parents' house, looking out at the moonlit ocean. The air was still warm, buzzing with the chirp of crickets. They sat on a wide porch swing, the gentle creak of its chains a soft accompaniment to their silence. The anticipation that had been building since the airport, through every text and glance and touch, reached its peak. It was a quiet, palpable thing hanging in the air between them. Kofi reached out and traced the line of her jaw, his touch feather-light. Nia's eyes fluttered closed for a moment before she turned her head and pressed a soft kiss to his palm. That was all the invitation he needed. He leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She met him halfway. Their first kiss was not a collision, but a discovery. It was soft and exploring, a tender confirmation of everything they had felt for days. It tasted of wedding cake and champagne, and a future neither had seen coming. Her hands came up to cradle his face, her thumbs stroking his cheeks. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her into the solid warmth of his body until there was no space left between them. When they finally parted, breathless and smiling, they rested their foreheads together. "I have a week left," Kofi said, his voice husky. "I know," Nia replied. "And after that?" He pulled back to look at her, at this brilliant, beautiful woman who had rerouted his life from a terminal chair. "After that," he said, with a conviction that surprised even him, "we figure it out. There are planes, there are phones, there are more beaches to debate." Nia laughed, a sound of pure joy, and kissed him again. "I like that plan." They sat there on the swing for a long time, wrapped in each other in the Caribbean night, talking about everything and nothing. The anxiety of the airport delay, the frantic energy of travel, felt a lifetime away. They had found their destination not in a place, but in each other. It was a beginning forged in the liminal space of an airport, but it was destined to last far, far longer. Their story wasn't ending. It was just finally, beautifully beginning.